Hello, I'm Anthony William, and I'm excited, I'm grateful, I'm honored. I'm happy that you're here, ready to take on this powerful information that can help you forge forward with that protective armor that I always talk about, that protective armor. My life's purpose has always been that you get answers to protect yourselves, your family, to have that truth, to have that knowledge, to protect your loved ones, your dear friends, and your neighbors, anybody that's important in your life. And that's important. If this is your first time joining my webinar or heard a radio show or read any books or anything of mine, please know that I dedicated my life to provide real answers for countless people for decades. And much of the information has been proven over the years. As the years have gone by, it's been proven even by science of information that I brought to the table. And so much of it that I've brought for us hasn't been yet discovered by research or science. And it's still years down the road and ahead. But I always want you to have that information now. I don't want you waiting. It doesn't make any sense to wait, And there's something important for you to know. Is as you listen, you may see that sometimes this information that I'm sharing with you will seem like the opposite of what you've heard before when it comes down to something in health or something in cancer or something like that. But don't be alarmed. There could be good reason, and very good reason, why it's the opposite, to protect you. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this and going through this. And sometimes you'll notice that the information could be similar to other sources, but there's subtle and different critical differences that make the difference. There's critical differences in the information, and you might not be able to see that right off the bat and say, oh God, I've heard that before. No, there could be a subtle critical difference because it matters, because information as it goes down the line gets messed with as it goes down the line. The common thread with the information you're going to get today is that it's the truth. And I'm not talking about truth that has been altered, truth that has been tainted, truth that has been skewed along the way. I'm not talking about that kind of truth that even the best well-known experts are speaking out there, but don't realize there's something in there that's not in your best interest. The information you're going to get is not repackaged, and it's not recycled theory made to sound like something new. This information you'll hear doesn't come from interest groups, medical funding with strings attached, botched research, lobbyists, internal kickbacks, persuaded belief systems, and private panels of influencers, and health field payoffs, or even trendy traps that are both in conventional and alternative medicine. That are both in conventional and alternative medicine. Seriously. When I say that, I still can't even believe it, but it's true. And I've seen it, and I've seen it over again. This information I'm sharing with you is in your best interest. You need to know that. That's important. If the information you're going to get here comes from a clean source, a pure, untampered source that I've been blessed with and have had access to since age 4. A higher source, a compassionate source that many of you have learned through reading my books or have heard or experienced one-on-one with me all through the years. Okay, so fasten your seatbelts, and I hope you enjoy the show. And I mean fasten those seatbelts, for really, because we're going for a ride. We're going for a ride. Many people have recently been asking me a lot, what are my thoughts about cancer? I see it all over the place. A lot of people ask me in different, ways and online and everything else. What do I know about cancer? And what are my thoughts about cancer? Well, so it was time that I actually covered this. Like I've covered dozens and dozens of ailments and different, illnesses and diseases and conditions with advanced information. I think it's important to just, get some cancer information out there too. That could be additionally helpful for the information that's already out there in the world. Either way, but it's important information. And my personal experience with cancer, you guys, started at age 4 when I discovered my grandmother had lung cancer. So I was the one that actually saw that she had lung cancer, and many of you probably know that story and how it went. But that was my first personal experience. And since then, though, through the decades, I've actually seen cancer in so many different people, cancer that has developed in so many different people along the way. And I've taken it extremely personal because of my grandmother, number one, and number two, because of the nature of it and what we go through in health and everything else. So I'm going to provide key pieces to cancer that you should know. And, of course, Epstein-Barr, which has a reason for why we're doing that today, too, which you'll figure out along the way as we talk about it. And so we're taking this serious today. We really are. Cancer and EBV, cancer and Epstein-Barr, we're taking this serious. You know, so when I diagnosed my grandmother of lung cancer at age 4, I've seen a lot of people just as a child, I'd be in a busy place or being in a movie theater and be able to know if someone had cancer in the movie theater and whatever kind of cancer and variety of cancer. Now, the good thing about the gift, the wonderful good thing about the gift that I've been given is you get to know what's behind the cancer. What's really the starting point? When did it start? How did it start in someone? What was it? See, medicine today, you guys, medicine today just focuses on cancer once it's been created, once something's been created, once something's developed and manifested. That's what cancer research is about. It's about that point. Cancer research really isn't about anything before that. And if it is, it's about something entirely wrong, which we're going to talk about. And I could say that, and it's going to be a mind blower, that there's a piece of fabric about the study of cancer today that isn't really correct. The information has to be out there about really how does it start? How can a cancer cell become a cancer cell? How can a cancer cell grow? How and what and why? What's really going on? And that's what we're talking about today. I mean, we only have a certain amount of time, of course, so I can't go on and on and on about hundreds of different varieties of cancer and all the different research that's out there today and the whole bit. And we'll do more of these. We're going to do more of these along the way. So we cover more and more, but we're going to cover key, critical points that are so important and information that is so important. So I just want to give you that whole background. Now, let's go into history just a little bit. Now, I'm sure there's some cancer experts that are actually just listening to this for sure now, and different physicians and different professionals and different people all around, and people that aren't even doctors that are experts in cancer because they've experienced it or they've known somebody or anything like that, or they're just researching constantly, and I get that. So if you know some research, you know that cancer, we've been told, cancer goes back a long way. It goes back years and years and years and years before us. So that's what we've been told. It's really old. It's old in our history. It goes back farther and further. Like, for instance, you may hear that cancer is 1,000 years old. And then you may hear that there's people with cancer that, are 2,000 years ago. Maybe they found a mummy with cancer. Okay? And then you may hear that just 500 years ago. Okay? Or, go back to 400 BC. All right, when the word cancer was created, it's a Greek word. So that word was created. That's a Greek word, cancer, for a sickness in the body. So you would think, well, cancer started really early because 400 BC, that's when cancer first started. So, and you're going to hear eventually that, an Iceman has cancer and they got it under study. Somebody they found in ice 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, next to a mammoth. And they're going to say, well, science research is going to say, well, cancer goes back as far as, the time of the mammoths. And you're going to hear that. But I have to be straight with you guys. I have to be straight up, all right? And remember, I told you to fasten those seatbelts. There's reasons for this trip, for this ride. There's reasons. See, we've been had. That's misinformation. Cancer is young. extremely young in history. And I'm going to talk about how and why and what. See, you have to understand something. When the term cancer in 400 BC, around 400 BC, around that time frame, when the Greeks came up with the term cancer, they were talking about a tumor, but they weren't talking about cancer cells in a tumor. They weren't talking about malignant cancer cells in a tumor. That word was developed for benign tumors. For benign tumors. That's where that word was developed. It was also developed off of just sickness that grew, whether it even wasn't a tumor. It didn't even have to be a tumor for that word to be used when it was first invented, as first that word was first, pronounced. So that means if someone was dying of some type of toxin or illness or something back, over 2,000 years ago, the word cancer was applied all the time. All of the time, it was applied. Tumor, no tumor. Being able to see a disease or not, it was applied. So you need to understand that. This is really important, okay? Any kind of tumors that were even found in the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s weren't cancerous. Could they have killed someone? Yes. Growing the wrong way, growing in the wrong place. Absolutely. Growing up against an organ, pushing up against a vein, pushing up is very easy back in that day for anything to pretty much take you out. But these tumors weren't the cancer we speak of, we see, we talk about today at all. Now, why is this? Why isn't this corrected anywhere? Why isn't this corrected with the experts? Why aren't they correcting it? Because they don't know better. I'm sorry to say. And there's a reason for this. It's not their fault. Not their fault at all. The reason why no one's corrected with this is because medicine today has to put the blame on you. It has to put the blame on you. You need to know that's how it's all been set up. Okay? And hang on. This is going to be okay. Get some tea out. Get some tea out, okay? Maybe some lemon balm tea or some relaxing tea. Because this is hard. This is hard to digest. Maybe some peppermint tea because, it helps you digest food. So we'll get helps your digestion improve. We'll get some peppermint tea out. See, the fault has to be put on you. Same thing I talk about all the time with autoimmune disease. We're told that the body is attacking itself, that the body literally is destroying itself with any kind of autoimmune disease. That's incorrect information. As I've talked about many times, there's pathogens that are the cause of the damage being done or the inflammation that's occurring. The body produces an antibody not to destroy the body or hurt the body on any level, but to go after the virus. It's not autoimmune. See, that part isn't even corrected yet. But the blame is always, it's not corrected out there, except I was the first person to actually get it out there. Now it's starting to get out there, thank God. And it will be proven. I promise you this. But the point is for you to believe that it's always your fault. So no matter what. So whatever kind of chronic fatigue or sickness or disease or illness or rash or disorder, it's just you. And this is how it's always been set up. So if the truth came out, the real truth, and you knew that you weren't responsible for your cancer, or cancer just didn't afflict you, it didn't naturally afflict you, just came on to you because that's the way it's been for thousands of years, which is the wrong information. If you knew the truth, that it was somebody else's fault, and if the world knew that, things would start falling apart. The things would start falling apart in medicine and research and everything else. So the pattern for medicine is always going to be heading in the direction, it's your fault. You got bad genes. Your body's attacking itself and destroying itself. You're creating your problem. You're eating too much. You're not taking care of yourself. You're doing whatever it is, it's going to point there in medicine. But with cancer's an early epidemic, really early. I mean, not early, sorry, just recently early is what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's recent. It's recent. And it's not as far back going all the way as we think it is. So when did the first real cancer start to develop into cancer? Meaning it left just the word itself and turned into a malignant cell, a cancerous cell, a cell that became destructive, or a tumor that became filled with malignant cells and so forth. When did that all start? Right in the late 1700s. The late 1700s. That's when the first cancer started. That alone is important to understand for so many reasons. That's when the first cancer started. And those cancers weren't the cancers we're dealing with now today. They weren't those cancers. They weren't. In fact, in the very late 1700s, there was only basically one variety of cancer. Docile, slow to the punch, not problematic, barely problematic. And then, by the 1830s, 1840s, a couple of other cancer varieties stemmed from it. Still docile, but a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more worse. The first cancer started around the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, which that was the birth of chemistry. That was the birth of the chemical world. This is when cancer started. Understand that it started when man started playing with chemicals, in the lab, chemistry. That's when it first started. And those chemicals were created and worked on, and the chemical world was being built. The industrial world was being built. We were burning things in the air we never burnt before. We were playing with different things. We were synthesizing different things, different chemical compounds, different agents that we were playing with. We were mixing metals. And we were learning how to use chemistry for the first time in history. Really learning how to use chemistry for the first time in history. And we are learning how to do things with it. We are learning how to play with metal with it, to change the structure of metals, and to even do more than that. And we were burning chemicals and burning them. And they weren't the chemicals we have today, which is why the cancers weren't so bad. The cancers weren't so bad at this point. Now, of course, in the 1700s and 1800s, we had all kinds of different tumors, and we had different varieties of tumors, and they were getting worse. Benign tumors, different illnesses, different sicknesses to that point. But cancer itself, and the cells of cancer wasn't in its great day at that point at all. But it's the birth of basically the industries. It was the birth of the chemical, playing around with chemicals, and the industries.